had many questions about global warming. I'd spent many hours reading about it on the internet without successfully finding out what it really was. It was at this point I decided the best way to get answers was just to ask the people around me. Excuse me.
Yes?
Do you know anything about global warming?
No.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Oh, didn't see you there.
Hi, I was wondering if you could take some time to answer a few questions for me.
Sure, what do you want to know?
Do you know anything about global warming?
Well, actually, I studied global warming when I was in college through meteorology and environmental chemistry classes. What do you want to know?
You mentioned that you studied it in college. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. Back when we were learning about global warming, there were two theories that we studied. One was the theory that's pretty much accepted these days, that global warming is caused by a buildup of greenhouse gases and causes the Earth's temperature to rise when rays from the sun penetrate the atmosphere and are reflected from the Earth, but instead of being reflected back into space, they are trapped inside the layer of the greenhouse gases, and the heat is reflected back down to the Earth, causing the temperature to rise. The second theory that we actually studied corresponds to, again, a buildup of the greenhouse gases, only instead of the rays from the sun penetrating the Earth's atmosphere, they are reflected back into outer space and they don't make it through the greenhouse gases, and therefore instead of the Earth's temperature warmed to its normal temperature, the temperature from the Earth actually drops. But given what we've seen over the last 20 years from scientific data, I think that we're seeing that theory is not well accepted and is not proving out to be what's happening.
So you would say that the first theory would probably be the more accurate?
That's correct. The first theory where the Earth's temperature is rising is actually what we're seeing in specific scientific data.
Okay. Do you know anything about the Clean Air Act?
Clean Air Act, yes, it was enacted so that we could control the amount of pollutants that were filled into the air. As we were in the early days of the Clean Air Act, it was mainly directed towards the pollutants that are put out through industrial pollution, as well as through cars, automobiles. So we used to see the requirements on cars in some states, such as Virginia, and I think we're doing it now in Connecticut, where you are limited by the amount of pollutants that can be emitted through exhaust. And also what we're seeing for manufacturers, that the amount of pollutants that we emitted into the air have to be, the amount has to be reduced and has to fall within a strict upper limit and parts per million.
Ah, yes. Since you seem to know a lot about that, do you know anything about Kyoto?
Oh, the Kyoto Accords. Those were, that was a treaty that was drafted by a number of industrial countries. Not all the industrial countries participated in those negotiations. It was negotiations that were done in Kyoto, Japan, I believe under the Clinton administration, where there were going to be targets set for the reduction of greenhouse gases that were going to be emitted into the air by all the signatory members of the Kyoto Treaty. After it was negotiated, it was brought back to the United States, and unfortunately the United States Congress at the time did not ratify that treaty. However, I believe the Clinton administration said that they would live by the accords or try to enforce the accords of the Kyoto Treaty. Under the new Bush administration, when the administration took office, they pretty much informed the world that they would not live by the standards of the Kyoto Accords.
Okay. You seem to know a lot about global warming. But what are you as an individual doing to prevent it?
Right now, the best way I think that individuals can prevent it is through just how they buy their automobiles, the types of cars that they drive. For example, there are new hybrid cars that are coming out, and it is a drop in the bucket as far as the emissions that are put into the atmosphere. But every little bit helps. Have I done anything personally yet? Well, the only thing I can do right now is maybe buy a fake Christmas tree instead of cutting down the forests where that work on replacing the carbon dioxide with oxygen. But maybe the best thing I can do right now is look for alternative fuel cars in the future. but that's about the best I can do.
Oh, well, that's marvelous. Thank you for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh, it's been
Thank you.
great. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you later.